we need to initialize the OpenAI environment. Okay, let's go ahead and initialize OpenAI environment. Okay, let's do, we have to do a couple of imports. First one is the OS module, because we have to do os.environ of set our key. Our key is OpenAI API key is going to be, we have to set the key here. To do that, I'm going to use the getPass module. From getPass, import getPass, and getPass of enter your OpenAI key, right? Once that is set, we have to initialize our client, which is going to be our OpenAI client. To do that, we are going to use the OpenAI module. From OpenAI, import OpenAI, right? So let's do this. Let's run this code. Now it's asking for the key. I'm going to paste it, press enter. Here we can see we have initialized our OpenAI client and we are good to go. Now we can use this client and upload this particular batch into OpenAI. Uploading this batch file to the server is fairly straightforward. We can use client.files module. So using this module, we can upload the batch file into OpenAI server. To do that, we're going to do the batch file is going to be client.files.create. Create takes two arguments. One is the file where we have to pass in the file content in binary format. To do that, we're going to do open of file name and we're going to read it in binary format. And the next argument is going to be the purpose. Purpose is whether we are going to fine tune it or we are going to use the assistant, or is it a batch or a vision, right? In our case, it's a batch. Right? So let's print this batch file and add a break statement here. Here we can see this is the print and here it's a file object, which means the file has been successfully uploaded to OpenAI. Here we can see the status is processed and this is the unique file ID which is getting associated with articles underscore 0 to 200.jsnl. And now our batch file is in the OpenAI server. We can also view this batch file in OpenAI's user interface. To do that, move to the OpenAI website and click on storage. Here we can see article 0 to 200.jsnl, and we can also see that the file ID which is present here is same as the one we have it in the code. So this file has been successfully uploaded to the OpenAI storage. The next step is simple. We just have to process this batch. Now that we have the file in OpenAI storage, the next step is to start the execution of the batch. Let's start the execution. To do that, we are going to use the module batches inside the client. So our batch job is going to be client.batches.create, and it takes in a couple of arguments. The first argument is the completion window. Of course, it's going to be the default 24 hours. The endpoint, the second argument. So the endpoint here is V1 chat completions. And the third and important argument is the input file IDs, right? Here we have to specify which job we need to process. In our case, we have to process the batch file that we uploaded. To do that, we are going to specify batch file.id, right? So the batch file.id will be the unique ID which specifies this particular batch file in OpenAI storage. And that's it. Let's print the batch job and let's have the break statement here and then run this code. If the code is correct, then for the first execution, it will fetch 200 articles, create the prompt, upload it to OpenAI server, and then start the execution. And then we can view the execution in the OpenAI website. Here we can see the file has been uploaded. Now, since we are running it again, it has uploaded the file once again, and we can see a different ID here. And we are going to use this ID, and we have created a batch job. And this particular batch contains the job contains a separate ID. And here is our endpoint, and here is our file source, which it shows. Let's go and check the UI. To check the status, move to the batches tab, and here you can see this is the batch that we uploaded right now, and the batch is already complete, and you can see the status is completed, and this is the endpoint, and this is the file article 0 to 200, and this is going to be our output file, right? So we don't want to process this batch and come to the UI and check for the results. We are going to automate this process as well, which is going to be the next step, where we have to poll this endpoint and verify whether this particular process or this particular batch is complete or not. Let's go ahead and write code to check the status. Check the status. To do that, we are going to use a module client.batches.retrieve. So the client.batches.retrieve takes in batch ID. So for instance, let's try to give this batch ID. Okay. When we do this, we can see batch, and along with this, you will see what was the input file that was sent, what is the current status of this particular batch, and we can also see what is the output file. So that means if the batch is complete and it is succeeded, then the output is stored in the OpenAI endpoint. So we can leverage this batch client.batch.retrieve and constantly poll the OpenAI endpoint. To do that, let's write a method, wait until batch is done, right? So let's pass in this batch ID, which is in batch job. In batch job, we have the ID, right? So we're going to pass in wait until the job is done. The batch ID equals the batch job dot ID, right? Now let's come here. First thing is to retrieve. So let's say the status that we are going to retrieve is client dot, we are going to do batches dot retrieve, and we are going to pass in the batch ID, right? And we don't want the entire dictionary, we just want the batch ID from, the status from this. So we are going to do status, right? And as we discussed before, if the status in progress mode, right, in progress, or status is validating, right, then we are just going to wait for 30 seconds, right? Let's import time, and we have to wait, say time dot sleep of 30 seconds, right? But after waiting for 30 seconds, we have to poll it again, right? So to do that, let's add an infinite while loop, right? While true, and imagine the status is error, right? Then we are going to say, for now, let's throw an error processing the batch. Of course, we need to add more details here. Let's do it later. And imagine the status is completed, right? Then we are going to retrieve the batch, right? To do that, we have to write some code which will retrieve this particular batch information, retrieve the batch output. Let's modify this code a little bit. Instead of validating the success criteria in the end, let's validate the success criteria first. If the status is completed, let's retrieve the result, okay? And if the status is, say, status in, say, error or failed, let's log it, error processing the batch, and irrespective of any other status, we are going to wait, right? In this way, it's just three conditions. If it is complete or failed, if it is in say validating or in progress, we just wait, right? So it makes the code much simple. If the batch is successful, let's go ahead and download the result. To do that, let's find the output file ID. So we can use the client.batches.retrieve and pass in this batch ID, right? And we have a parameter called output file ID, right? Let me show this output file ID here. So this is going to be the output file ID. If the batch is successful, then the output is successfully stored in the OpenAI storage, and it will have a unique file ID, which is the output file ID. So what we can do here is to retrieve this output file ID. Once that is available, we are going to use the files module inside the client.files.content. We have to provide the file ID, which is going to be our output file ID, right? So this is going to be the file content, right? And once we have the content, we have to save this content inside a file. To do that, let's write output file, right? And we want this output file to be unique, because remember, we are going to invoke this method inside a for loop. So let's pass in the output file name, right? Let's have the output file name as output underscore input file name. Our input file name is the file name, right? So let's add a new parameter here and add a new parameter here as well, right? Okay, now we have the output file name. Output file name in the write binary mode, because the results are saved as binary, as fp, and we have to give fp.write of the content, right? Okay, it's done. Now let's revisit this process. Here we are batching. Let's add a couple of print statements and execute this code. So for the first print statement is, okay, we are going to start is and end is going to be this. Let's print the start and end variables. Right? We're going to process from 0 to 200. Okay, end is here. Let's okay 0 to 200. And once that is done, let's write create prompt. We are going to create a prompt and write a batch file, right? So this is going to be our batch file. Once that is not write a batch file, it's upload a batch file. Here in the create prompt, we are writing the batch file, and in this step, we are going to upload the batch file to OpenAI. Once that is done, let's do start the execution. We are going to run this batch, and let's pull the result, right? And this is going to be the output file, right? And the parameter for this is output file name. So let's do equals output file. Okay, we're good to go. Let's remove this break statement and let's run this. Here we can see the first batch has started 0 to 200 and the prompt got created. It uploaded a batch and the file has been uploaded to OpenAI, and the batch execution started and it's pulling the result. Maybe one more update that we can do is print the status here, so that we know what is the status of the batch after 30 seconds. Okay, we have to add the break statements after for the status complete and status fail as well, because we don't want to infinitely poll if it is completed or fail. And once we run it, we can see, okay, here is your start and end. First 200, the file got uploaded, the execution, the batch execution started, and it went on to different status. First is it started validating, and then it would have gone to in progress, and in next 30 seconds we were seeing like it's in finalizing status. And once that is completed, then it basically our code downloads the output writes into a file. So since this is article 0 to 200, you can see the output is in output underscore article 0 to 200, and this is the request ID. This is the custom ID which we passed in, and here we can, in the response, we can see a JSON where we are getting the category as the output, right? And without any manual intervention, we can see the second, as soon as the first batch is completed, it went to the second batch, created the prompt, created a batch file, uploaded in UI, the same process, same iteration, and then it goes on, right? So now without any manual intervention, we can even process this for, say, instead of 1,000 articles, say we want to process a huge data set, say for example 100,000 articles. You just schedule 100,000, you just change the index with 0 to 100,000, set up a proper batch size, and then run this code, and yeah, that's it. You just wait for the execution to be over, and at some point of time you want to check whether the batch execution is, you want to check the status. You can check it in the code, or you can check it in the log, or even you can check it in the OpenAI's website, right? A quick closing note: if you want the results immediately, then this is not a right API endpoint. You need to use the OpenAI API endpoint to fetch the results. But if you have time, imagine you are trying to translate a book, or you want to run some executions based on your data set, and you have time, then this is easiest way where you can schedule all your batches and run it overnight and wait for the results in the morning, and you will have, hopefully, if it gets scheduled, you will have the results available in your morning time, which you can take and process it. Okay, the execution for all 1,000 are done. Here we can see the last batch 800 to 1,000, and it got successfully completed, and all the results are saved into the respective files, which we can use it for the later analysis. I hope the video was helpful. If so, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and see you all in the next video soon.